And as far as this, like best strategies for rest and recovery. Now, this is like more or less there's a lot of stuff out there research wise, but there's also a lot of stuff like that we've just intuitively like experience wise been able to figure out like what's the first thing that pops into your head when you think of the best strategies to help yourself recover.
The first one is sleep, right? Like, I think a lot of people get so caught up in like what's the best supplement? Let me use this mic. Let me back up. I think the first thing that people go to or jump to is what's the best supplement they should take, right? Or what's the best practice that they can do? Or what's the, hey, I heard melatonin works good for sleep. Like, should I be taking that? Like, all those things are great. But I think those are very surface level band-aid fixes. So in terms of helping with recovery, the first thing that comes to mind is sleep first and foremost. If you're not getting adequate and quality sleep, both time duration and quality, let's address that first. That's what I would say. What about you, man? What's one of the first things that comes to mind when you're like, if we're just talking solely, let's just say recovery from training. Let's say somebody's either advanced in training or they're just getting into training, they're experiencing some soreness and they're like, hey, how do I recover a little bit better? Like, what's some of the first things that come to mind for you?
Well, I my thing on here, I put sleep will always be number one. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what I did as well.
Okay,
And I just
cool.
wanted to touch on because I know like people listening or watching this, like yeah, sleep is it's good, but like how do we improve it, right? And I've definitely dove deep into this in the past because I used to struggle heavily with sleep. I'll be honest, I haven't like focused on a lot of these as good over the last maybe year or
Me
so.
neither.
I've definitely like this is something that it's always a good reminder, right? And so like
Yep.
some of the stuff I wrote down, and this is something I've gotten a lot better with as of late. Getting sunlight first 60 minutes of the day. If you can find yourself outside in the sun after getting up, definitely it helps with your circadian rhythm, really setting that in. And like our body's on a clock, a 24-hour clock. If we can set that to be with the sun, now we're starting to get tired a lot closer to bedtime, and we find ourselves getting better sleep, limiting screens, especially blue light, closer to bed. I've always have now this is another thing. I'm gonna be honest. I haven't wore these in a while, but this is something I probably should start wearing
All the
again
blockers.
closer to bed. Yeah, some blue light blockers. They're sitting right here. We'll watch TV before bed, so I should definitely get into this. This is a good reminder for me on all these fronts. Getting plenty of movement and exercise throughout the day. I think that's one of the best things I found when I'm like getting a consistent, when I'm getting a good like solid 45 minutes of walking in, I'm getting a good workout in. Naturally, my body is a lot more tired later in the day, and I sleep a lot better, sleep a lot harder. Sleeping conditions. Now, this is something that definitely have pretty locked in. Sleeping in a cold environment, dark, getting those blackout shades if you need to, silent room, comfortable bedding, right? Dialing in that stuff is simple, easy things that you can do relatively quickly. Generally, I mean, obviously, like comfortable bedding maybe costs a little bit more. If you don't already have even a comfortable pillow, like just at a bare minimum, purchase something that's like a little bit more comfortable as a pillow that can go a long way dialing in those environments. And then I said last thing was stress management, keeping stress lower, whether that is taking deep breaths when you feel the stress get up, whether that's getting ahead of it in the morning, maybe doing like a short minute, 5 minute meditation, stretching, right? Breathing while stretching. Like there's a lot of different ways you could do it. But those are kind of some of my main sleep tips that I just wanted to dive into there so that anybody listening watching can at least have an idea or some different tangible tips that they can use to get better sleep.
Those are great. Like, those are great actionable things that people can apply right now. Even if they're not doing them, they can at least take strides or steps in the right direction and become better at that and just do little by little, right? Like incremental improvements on those, and you'll notice a drastic change. I think it's super important too to highlight that if somebody's goal, when we're talking about recovery and sleep and its effects on recovery, if somebody's goal is specifically fat loss, which I work with a lot of clients, that's our primary target, right? Majority of the time. And so we put an emphasis on building strength and also building muscle specifically, right? So we want to get stronger. We want to also be able to have the ability to repair that muscle. The more muscle we have on our body, it makes the fat loss process easier. Now, when we don't recover properly and our sleep is not prioritized and we don't have good sleep habits, what happens is, I was just checking out a study too. It's really cool. They basically showed that people who slept 4 hours or less, so they were sleep deprived, they had drastically lower numbers of growth hormone secretion. So if you're talking about muscle recovery, growth hormone is one of the most important things to repair the tissue and to grow the tissue. And the area or duration or time of day that we secrete the highest is when we sleep. And so in these studies, they showed that people who are sleep deprived 4 hours or less, they had drastically lower growth hormone levels. So I think it's super important to like show yourself and go, okay, if I'm taking a hit on sleep and I'm that person that's like, well, I'll sleep when I'm dead, I'm going to grind through it. Sleep's not that important. And you have these huge and big goals of losing body fat and you want to improve your health and fitness and all that. And you're like, why am I struggling? Why is my body fighting back? Why am I sore? Why am I not making the progress that I should? Remind yourself of that, like what you're actually doing, the signals that you're sending to your body by being sleep deprived. It's not just, I've worked with multiple clients where they've just tried to brush over their sleep. They're like, oh, well, I'm going to hit my macros and I'm going to crush my workouts and I'm going to hit my steps and I'm going to do all these other things. But then they want to brush over sleep. It's like, you're only going to be as good as your ability to your sleep habits, right? You're only going to be as good as those. If you want to optimize all those things that you're doing, I think it's always a good reminder to say, hey, if I am using strength training and resistance training and I'm prioritizing, I'm getting enough protein and I'm working on building strength and I'm working on building muscle, I'm getting stronger. And the more muscle that I have on my body, it's easier to burn fat, right? And remember that, and it's going to speed up our metabolism. We have to remind ourselves like, okay, am I doing an adequate job of being able to put myself in a position to elicit some of those things that we want, like the growth hormone, right? And if I'm sleep deprived, I am not putting the cards in my favor. I'm not stacking it. So I think that's always a good reminder. It's like a little gold nugget to like keep in the back of your head of, you're not just getting a lack of sleep. You're not just going about your day being tired. You're putting yourself behind the eight ball. And so I think it's a good reminder. I'm reminding myself of that now, and it kind of gives me a little kick in the ass of like, okay, yeah, take your sleep a little bit more seriously. There's more bang for your buck when you do that. And so I
Yeah.
think that's always a good reminder.
Oh, for sure. And it's that first domino, right? Like I've always found you get bad sleep. Now maybe you reach towards less quality foods and you don't get your normal workout and movement in. And then you make not as great decisions throughout the day. All of a sudden, you get worse sleep. And then it's like that spiral of domino effect is what I found. Because you're just not thinking as clearly, right? Naturally, you get up, less quality sleep, like you're trying to minimize the decision making. So you're gonna like it's your less energy, worse workout. Like it's like all of these things that even go towards getting a better sleep are now going in the wrong direction. Because my next thing is when it comes to rest and recovery, I think of quality nutrition, right? And when I think of quality nutrition, I think of plenty of protein, right? Making sure you're helping repair, maintain that muscle that's needed, but also 70 to 80% nutritious foods, like more whole foods, fruits, veggies, meat, fish, different stuff like that, that are going to really go a long way towards like the nutrients that our body actually needs to recover, right? Like our body needs certain things on a daily basis. Like it needs enough protein to maintain what we're going and maintain our body and our muscle. It needs magnesium and different minerals and nutrients that are going to help our processes, our internal bodily processes work to the max of our ability. And so that's, and it all comes down to too, it's like, okay, that's going to help you feel better. It's going to help you get you more energy. It's going to help you recover from workouts and from, different things, but also it helps you sleep better, which helps you recover as well. So
Yeah,
it's like everything kind of comes back to that in like some sense, right?
totally. Yeah. Another thing too is like if you feel like you're somebody who's constantly under the weather or you're sick all the time, you have to remember that sleep affects your immune system too. I think a lot of people brush over that one, right? They're like, I'll just kind of do all the things. I'll make sure I hydrate. And I'll make sure I'm doing all the things, but sleep is the thing that's going to sacrifice because I have to. There's no way working around it, and they kind of write themselves off. And so I was also looking up a study too that was pretty cool. It said that they tested people who had slept or were sleep deprived under 7 hours. So if you go under the 7 hour mark, they noticed in the test study data that people took a hit on their immune system functionality by 30%. So immediately, just under 7 hours, 30%, your immune system functionality takes a hit. And so that's like one of the things where just by getting an adequate amount of sleep, you're already putting yourself in a favorable advantage to be able to, I'm going to continue to stay healthy. I'm going to continue to be able to fight things off with a strong immune system. And I'm going to continue to put myself in a really good position. And so that's something that I wanted to highlight that I don't think people really think about is as far as like, oh, I'm just tired, right? You brought up energy too, right? Energy is another thing where they have a bunch of studies and research on. Sleep is one of the prime times to be able to restore muscle glycogen, or think about it like carbohydrates in your muscle, things that we use as our preferred energy source. That's where it gets restored. So if you're somebody who's working out consistently and you're doing these things where you're expending or you're draining those stores, and then you're not getting an adequate amount of sleep, you're not able to replenish or think about it as like recharging your batteries, right? Like your ability to recharge your batteries is very minimal if you're not getting an adequate amount of sleep, and you want to go into your next training, or you want to dominate and you want to be able to put maximum output, or at least give yourself a fair chance in your workouts and progress. Again, you're putting yourself behind the 8 ball by depriving your sleep. So that's where the majority of the recovery happens. I think a lot of people are under the impression that we're going into our workouts and we're prioritizing high quality foods, and then that's where all the gains are made, is during our workout session. And it's like we're causing damage to our body there. It's in the recovery process where all the gains are made, specifically in sleep. Think of it as like you're just plugging your body into the charging dock while you sleep. And so it's like, how long are you able to do that for? Are you only doing it for a little bit, and then you go and operate throughout the rest of your day at 30% capacity or 40% capacity or whatever percent you're charged up because you weren't charged up for the whole night? Like, it's a good way to think about it too.
Yeah. No, that is a really good way to think about it. And the thing is like that sleep deprived state can become a norm, where it's just kind of like what people think is normal, and you don't really figure out that it's a problem until after you start fixing it. Right. So it's like you kind of get into a better, you start moving in the right direction, you start developing habits that get you better sleep, and then you realize just how tired you actually were. You get used to being tired, and it becomes the normal state. And so it doesn't feel like you're tired. But then once you actually start having energy, it's like, holy shit, what have I been doing? Right.
Yep. Yep.
And also, another thing, just to kind of, obviously we've been diving heavily into sleep, which is the main thing, right? If you can take anything from this, like try to focus on even a tip or two that we've talked about to get a little bit better sleep, and you're going to have a lot better recovery. That's the number one thing by far. Research is just constant. We could name article after article that's going to dive into some capacity of sleep and like how it relates to recovery, how it relates to muscle building and the immune system, like you said. But another thing that pops into my head is hydration, right? I think that is like, it's so many people also operate out of state of dehydrated, right, throughout the day. And it's a huge driver in sleep,
Yep.
energy, right? It's like, but also it's just like clarity, like mental clarity, right? Like if your body doesn't have enough water coming in, but more importantly, even like potentially is electrolytes, right? I think a lot of people, maybe they do drink enough water throughout the day, but they don't have any electrolytes that they're taking, whether that's just a little bit of sea salt in your water in the morning, whether that's a lemon, right? Like getting some like lemon water or something like that. Or some of my favorites, I use Element and Noon. Those are two of my favorites as well. Element is my go-to, but I do like Noon a lot as well. They have a lot of different good kinds. You just plop the tablet in your water, and it's kind of like Alka-Seltzer. But those are some of my favorites. Element, you can get, like, they're both kind of expensive, but I think that it's one of the best like starters to your morning. You could also, like I said, go get lemons, do lemon, squeeze a lemon in your water in the morning. Sea salt, you could do sea salt and lemon. There's a lot of different ways to do it, but that goes a long way. Getting like your magnesium, sodium, potassium. A lot of folks will just think about hydration and or like water capacity, but that really is a huge thing too.
Yeah. And you brought up clarity, right? Like mental clarity, making, if you ever felt like you're foggy, or you're like, man, things aren't as fast, or I don't feel like I'm as productive as I normally am, or things just aren't firing like on the right cylinders. Um, there's a ton of research out there that shows even just like adequate sleep from 8 to 10 plus hours. This one specific study I'm referencing is, they showed that reaction times and decision making was far greater in those who slept a minimum of 8 to 10 hours. And so if you feel like, man, I'm groggy, like I feel like I'm a little bit muddy in the brain as far as like cognitive, from a cognitive standpoint, and like my decision making is it's slower. I feel like I'm just not on the ball with things. It's like there's data behind that. It's one of those things as far as recovery. You mentioned clarity, and like, yeah, it's a real thing. And if you're sacrificing sleep, and you're in one of those positions where you think you can kind of just keep breezing over it, it's going to be extremely frustrating, right? You're going to keep like butting your head up against the wall, and wondering why, and looking for, like, here's what happens is, I think people, instead of fixing the root cause, they'll look for like all these little quick fixes. They'll be like, oh, I'll drink coffee, or let me take this supplement that's going to help me, or like, let me do, we talked about pre-workouts on one of our pods, right? It's like, they'll do all these little things that kind of like dodge the root cause, and you never, when the root cause is never addressed, your recovery will continue to suffer until that root cause is addressed. Like, you'll do these little things that get and like move the needle a little bit, and so it gives you like this sense of accomplishment, or you may be like on the right path or on the right page. But man, it always comes back to that: at what point are you going to address the root cause, so now you can really take leaps and bounds forward, versus just like these little quick fixes and these quick hitters that kind of move you along a little bit, just enough to be like, yeah, okay, I'm in a good position, that kind of allow you to turn a blind eye to that root cause that we're talking about with the sleep. So,
Yeah.
but
And it's a lot easier to get away. It's like, it's so easy to get away from like small things and to start compounding those little things that you're talking about, like just like pounding more coffee, and just napping throughout the day, which is fine. But like a lot of times, like people get to that point where they have to, right? It's like, oh, I always have to take my nap, when, if you can focus on putting a little bit more towards your nighttime routine, towards some of the things, even like a huge thing is just that sunlight first thing in the day. I remember way back, like a personal experience of really trying to fix, like focusing like years ago about fixing my sleep. I was like, God, I'm just sleeping so broken. I feel like I have no energy throughout the day. And I started putting like a lot of work into like a proper nighttime routine and morning routine. And one of them was like getting outside first thing in the morning, getting in that sunlight. And it's crazy what that actually ended up doing for the rest of my day. I had so much more energy. I was moving as well, right? I was going on a walk and getting outside. So it was like, I'm getting that energy up through the blood flow, but also through that sunlight too. And I started sleeping a lot better just from that one thing. And on top of that, just all the things we talked about earlier. But just to kind of list off some of the other things I had when it comes to rest and recovery that maybe people aren't thinking about, before we let everybody go for the day, is sauna, right? Sauna, like, and I like to stretch in the sauna and kind of do like a little dual thing. Obviously, stretching and mobility is a huge thing when it comes to recovery from workouts as well. Like making sure that you're just taking a little bit of time, only even 5 minutes. Like sometimes what I'll do is I'll sit in front of the TV at night and I'll just stretch a little bit, right? Where you can kind of knock out two birds with one stone there. Cold therapy, right? There's tons of research on cold tubs, cold showers, cryotherapy, how beneficial that is to like recovering from workouts, soreness, different things like that. I also had spending time with the people you love. I think this is an underestimated one, right? Where we kind of just think about the common, like sunlight, sleep, uh, quality nutrition, hydration, stuff like that, stretching, saunas, cold therapy. But when you talk about, I think this is one of the most underrated ones, is like taking the time throughout the week to like, even at a bare minimum, if you're not around the people you love, call them, right? It's how much energy that gives you to do that, but also to spend time with people that you do really enjoy spending time with. It really goes a long way towards relaxing you, right? I
yeah,
think that that's a huge relaxing thing. There's certain people I'm sure that you're thinking about right now, whoever it is that's watching, listening to this, that you're probably thinking about, oh, this person, like, it lifts me up. Like, it's my smile when I think about it. Maybe it's it's a spouse, a girlfriend, or boyfriend, a best friend, a family member, whatever it is. But I'd encourage you to think about those people and then try to like spend a little bit more time throughout the week with them. It'll go a long way towards, first off, like joy and happiness in your life, but on a different level, it goes a long way towards rest and recovery, which is the topic of today's show. And the last thing I had on here was walking. I think that sometimes when I've in the past, like before I got into this space, it was like, oh, I'm so sore, like I'm just gonna lay on the couch all day, right? And that's not the formula, right? You end up being sore for longer when you get yourself moving. You get outside, you walk, maybe you stretch, do some mobility. That movement actually encourages more for you to recover quicker, right, from those things. So it's like what they say with injuries, right? Like if you're injured, you still want to move, right? You still want to be able to get out and do stuff, depending on the injury, right? But it helps, like movement helps with different injuries to progress them along, because we're not supposed to be sedentary. Like that's not what we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the only thing I had to add to what we talked about today, hopefully everybody's taken some awesome tips away from that, is when I talk to people and they battle like hunger cravings or like have these surges in food, right? And we talk about sleep and its effect on recovery, and just going, okay, if I am lacking sleep, we have to remember that we're also in subconsciously imbalancing our hormones when we do that as well. And so more specifically, leptin and ghrelin, right? Leptin is the hormone that says, hey, I'm satisfied, I'm full, right? And ghrelin is the one, it's your hunger hormone. So when those are in balance and those are key and you're getting adequate sleep, you're not going to feel these super strong, like high cravings. However, when you're sleep deprived, those get out of balance. And so leptin isn't as responsive. Ghrelin can be through the roof. And now you have this imbalance in these hormones and you're like, man, why am I getting these crazy cravings all of a sudden? And like, why do I just want to eat everything in sight and like go crazy? And so if you're you have these ambitions and goals of losing body fat and improving your health and fitness, and you're sacrificing sleep in the process, and you're facing this uphill battle of like these massive cravings, again, it's directly correlated, and it all comes back to that sleep. So hopefully that's helpful. We left a lot of gold nuggets in here for you guys. And if you found benefit from this, if you found even just a little thing that you were like, man, that could be helpful for somebody that I know, all we ask is that you share it with those people that you care, that you love about. Again, you can find us on Apple, Spotify, all the platforms, YouTube, and you can share this link with a friend. If you do have questions or you have things that you want to see us cover, we always enjoy talking to you guys. So if you throw them in the comments, send Alex or I a message, and you may see that topic on one of our live podcasts. So until then, we will catch you guys on the next one.